I know I'm really late to this upload for this week and that this video is long overdue, but I've finally gone and got all the fucking pages again after another like 70 runs. In reality, it really shouldn't have taken this long, but my fucking party members kept robbing the goddamn pages! Anyways, I've noticed recently that some of you guys have been randomly unsubscribing from my channel. So be sure to check down below to see if you are subscribed, and while you're down there, be sure to leave a like and comment to help this video get recommended to more people. Okay, that's enough for now. Let's just jump straight back into explaining the significance of the Floor 4 journals and how they connect with the world of Hypixel Skyblock.
Please note that anything that I say in this video that isn't directly in the text of the journal entries is just speculation and are all just my thoughts and ideas. None of my ideas are confirmed by any of the Hypixel staff team, so please keep that in mind while watching this video. The first new entry from the release of Floor 4 is the Aftermath, and it is told from the perspective of someone from the undead side. In this entry, we learn that the half-wither, half-human from the Expedition Volume 4 is revealed to be Necron, the Floor 10 boss of the Catacombs. The writer of this entry seems to be fairly high amongst the ranks in Necron's army as well, since the writer states, quote, "I would have eradicated them myself if Necron hadn't made an appearance. I think the plan is to send Storm after the castle if they flee," implying that they could have taken on General Dan's militia all on their own, and that they know of Necron's plans. My best guess is that the writer of this entry is Goldor, the Floor 8 boss, since Satan was part of the militia at the time, and there's no way that Maxor was even born yet, since his boss lore text says that he's, quote, "only 500 years old, barely starting to wither," which means that he couldn't have existed back in the year 1531. Goldor's boss lore also backs up my hypothesis, as it states that he's a battle veteran, and that his official title in the rankings is Captain, meaning that it would make complete sense for him to attend this ambush on the militia, with him as one of the lead commanders. With him being a veteran, it definitely could have been possible for him to have lived to the present day, especially because in Necron's lore, it states that he, quote, "inherited the Catacombs eons ago," implying that our present is in a year far beyond the year 1531, and that withers are able to live for literal eons. At the end of the entry, we learn that Solomon was captured and interrogated by Necron, and that Necron is very fond of the Watcher, implying that the two may share a history together. The second entry from Floor 4 is The Apprentice Part 1, and in this entry we finally break the linear timeline that all the previous entries seem to follow, since the year is not set in 1531 and is actually set nearly 400 years prior in the year 1138. The entry is told in the third person point of view, meaning that somebody is watching Necron or just documenting his past. Anyways, the story follows Necron, the Floor 10 boss we know today, back when he was still human, and we learn that at this point in his life, he attended the Academy, an institution that seems to deal with magic, and he wants to see what's inside the scroll that his professors forbid him to see, convinced that they will give him the answer to what kind of magic killed his parents 17 years ago in the year 1121. Necron at this point is also described as being able to hear mana and understand it, but can't seem to answer it back. We also learn at the end of the entry what his motives seem to be. All Necron seems to want to do is reveal forbidden magic to the world, claiming that it will save them all. The third entry from Floor 4 is The Follower, and it takes place in the year 1143, 5 years after the events in The Apprentice Part 1 and Part 2. We are once again in a third person point of view, this time following a kid named Lathrop who has been having visions of the future. The one Lathrop has in the beginning of the story seems to be a vision that is very close to our time in the present day, as the world is described as being, quote, more advanced, and the vision showed a group of adventurers in front of the Dungeon Hub portal near the base of the mountain, possibly referring to dungeon parties that we see today. We also learn of Dr. Emmett and how he's been studying the breach on top of the mountain created by an event known as the Calamity, which orphaned Lathrop at a very young age, and quite possibly Scarf and Necron too. Now knowing of this event, we can infer that if Lathrop, Necron, and Scarf were all orphaned by the Calamity, then it must have taken place in the year 1121, since that's the year we know Necron was orphaned at from the backstory given in The Apprentice Part 1. The Watcher also seems to be connected to the breach and the Calamity, because Lathrop describes seeing a creature that he calls the Eye in his visions, and it was described as a floating eye, which leaves little to no doubt as to what this creature is and who it is. As for how it's connected to the Calamity and the breach, we don't quite know yet, but maybe that connection will be explained in a journal entry from a later floor. Also, we learn of some actual lore for the mountain in this entry, like how the house on top of the mountain is no doubt Dr. Emmett's. The spiral staircase on one of the peaks of the mountain is where Dr. Emmett must have been studying the breach,
and that there used to be a zip line from the mountain to the castle, which explains why there's that balcony looking thing facing the ruins in the present day on top of the mountain. Maybe one day the breach will open in a future update and we'll get the opportunity to travel through it, or alternatively the calamity reoccurs for us and we as players get the opportunity to try and stop it somehow. The final entry from Floor 4 is The Apprentice Part 2, and it continues right where we left off in The Apprentice Part 1. In this entry, we learn that Necron lived up in the trees, probably in the treehouses in the wilderness by the fairy pond. The academy was also described as being by his treehouse, which could possibly refer to the Wizard Tower being the academy, since it's the only magical thing around that area that's nearby. The D&D Association, which is an organization that we know next to nothing about, is revealed to be Necron's adopted father after his parents died. We also get to see a showcase of Necron's magical affinity when he hears his grimoire's distaste for him through a tingling feeling in his hand. But we also learn of his great failures as a student of the academy, since he's stated as, quote, already one of the oldest students and only capable of executing very simple spells. A forbidden scroll is then given to Necron by an unknown. It's a simple invisibility spell that makes the user immune to, quote, vision spells and bypass, quote, weak barriers, which Necron probably uses to break into the vault later. Quote, forbidden scrolls are held in the vault of the Dean, protected by heavy magic spells. Stealing them is unthinkable. But there was only one barrier he knew, and that was the last place he wanted to be. The vault may be the building on the side of the mountain that I previously called the museum in previous videos, since it seems to showcase a variety of items and armor in it. Lastly, it seems to be that spells can be attached to talismans and rings, which refers to why our talismans give additional effects. Quote, quite useless, he thought, but at least it was something. A confirmation of his affinity with dark magic. Maybe he could attach it to a talisman or a ring. Maybe in a future update we'll get an enchanting skill revamp or something, where we get to create our own scrolls with special effects that we can put onto blank talismans to essentially have custom buffs and effects. Okay, so that's it for this speculation video / explanation of the Floor 4 dungeon journals. And what do you guys think of it? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, be sure to leave a like, click subscribe, and share the video with others if you thought it was good. Alright, don't stop gaming guys. Peace out.